If military-trained divers were present at the ditching site within seconds of Honolulu-based Makani Kai Air's single-engine commuter airline Cessna Grand Caravan hitting the water, it could only mean those divers being there was part of an intricate plan made weeks, if not months, in advance. Although the U.S. Navy controls SEAL teams when they're deployed abroad for military purposes, those teams' use in the planning, training, and execution of political, propaganda, and deception missions are directed by the CIA. In the excerpted online article shown, the crashed Cessna Grand Caravan's airline CEO and owner apparently led Hawaii News Now to believe that the crash site was a mile offshore of the Kalaupapa Peninsula. The image in the article originated with the U.S. Coast Guard and was represented to be an aerial view of the crash site. Using that photo was a fraudulent attempt to show the plane was a mile out, when in fact it was not the aerial view of the crash site, but a picture of a U.S. Coast Guard helicopter during the rescue. Pilot and passengers all would have known that the plane had crashed only about 1/8 of a mile offshore, at the location pointed to by the author-inserted yellow arrow. The bottom middle image shows that the plane was 13.5 Grand Caravan wingspans, that is, 234 yards from shore. The farthest left image in that picture is the actual ditched plane. Within just several minutes after the ditching, this photo was taken by the first-on-the-scene pilot. The scene was otherwise a beautiful, warm, calm day, 1/8 of a mile offshore of the Kalaupapa Peninsula. Anyone with a concern for passenger safety could have made sure the group swam together in their life jackets towards shore. Beginner swimmers, even without life jackets, should have been able to dog paddle a distance in less than 7 minutes. Instead, the occupants were out on the water for an average of 100 minutes. But what's this? It appears to be some sort of craft. Its wake suggests it's traveling coincidentally eastward, on a parallel course to the plane's orientation. Using the plane's dimensions as a guide, the portion above water would appear to be about 4 foot by 5 foot by 5 foot, which might appear as a small boat atop the water. At the upper left is a known SEAL delivery vehicle. Finding this should be no surprise, as the on-scene divers had to have gotten there somehow, and SEALs do not jump out of airplanes into the water. Roughly an hour after the ditching, as the U.S. Coast Guard Command C-130 arrived on scene, it radioed to controllers that it had both the aircraft and a rescue boat in sight. In neither the official story nor any media reports has there been any mention of any boats appearing at the rescue scene. A FOIA request was made asking for records concerning Navy, Marine Corps, and/or SEAL watercraft in use on that date in that area, while making no mention of the Makani Kai incident. The U.S. Pac Fleet's response in relevant part reads, quote, "We confirmed that there were no Pac Fleet ships in the area of the crash, and that no Pac Fleet ships were contacted or involved in the search and rescue operations related to the crash." End quote. Nothing had been mentioned about a crash, nor was the request restricted to being only about ships. Thirdly, the request did not restrict itself to information about search and rescue operations. The Navy used weasel words about only ships and limited their response to Pac Fleet ships being contacted or involved in search and rescue operations related to the crash, just to be able to say they had no Pac Fleet documents responsive to our request. More than 26 months after the crash, after the Navy FOIA request had been honed to be even more exacting, the authors received 2 further letters from the U.S. Navy for the request. In the first, the Navy walked back its earlier weasel speak and came up with 2 Navy ships whose presence near the shores of Kalaupapa that day fit within even the initial request criteria. There were Navy ships in the area that day, the Navy says, namely 2 destroyers both capable of landing helicopters such as the Seahawk that assisted with the rescue at Kalaupapa. A couple of weeks later, the Pac Fleet commander of the U.S. Navy submarine force chimed in, disclosing that the USS La Jolla, a Navy nuclear submarine specifically rigged to transport SEAL delivery vehicles of the very type possibly seen in the Kalaupapa waters 200 yards from the caravan, was assigned to be in that area uniquely on that very day. On the lower right is the $2 billion La Jolla submarine with a detachable SEAL delivery vehicle. So what we thought we saw in the water near Fuddy and her fellow caravan occupants has been all but confirmed by the U.S. Navy only 26 months later, even though all further information has been kept classified. By the preponderance of much evidence, it is known that there were on-scene military-trained divers, their delivery vehicles and high-tech gear, and that via FOIA'd FAA records, crash records were falsely confirmed to have been justifiably destroyed. FOIA'd military records were doctored, some fraught with error, some went missing, some delayed, some denied, and some were redacted on the basis of exemptions that amount to eyebrow-raising claims of national security. The white rectangle is an extract of the Honolulu Center Air Traffic Control National Traffic Manager's log. Its Special Ops section is most often used for military operations. The second redacted line describes a 3,000-foot vertical airspace reservation that brackets in time the single exact hour in which the Makani Kai 208B was scheduled for takeoff at 3:15 Hawaii Standard Time. The distinctively colored black and yellow bag in the video frame at the upper left appeared under the Caravan's tail a mere 32 seconds after the ditching. The only way it could have gotten there was from someone that was already poised in the water as the plane ditched. That's known partly by the sophisticated electronics the bag would show it contained, and that the same would double as a non-official life jacket for one of the passengers for most of the scenario. The former Green Beret contravened the pilot's order to wear a life jacket as seen at lower left. Instead, he works with the bag and another Tupperware-like container not previously seen in the cabin with any of the passengers. There were special life jackets that didn't originate on a Caravan, electronics, a microphone, a listening device, and an antenna, among other things. Putting on and training to use this equipment would have taken the passengers a very significant amount of time. The NTSB delivered video that showed many high-tech devices that could not have been on site if this had been merely an accident. It does appear there was an underwater communications network, replete with repeaters, a water-air antenna, microphones and listening devices, troop transports, and a SEAL delivery vehicle. That's quite a well-coordinated exercise. Just who was this Fuddy that the deep state would pull out all the stops for her? About a half hour after the passengers left the plane area, as the videographer just happens to pan across where the plane is still floating, one can see the 3 images successively on the screen. Notice that with each image, the plane has risen ever higher out of the water. The middle image clearly includes a man-made device of some sort appearing above the engine compartment. Could these images be showing the exact moments in which the engine was being cut from the fuselage? It seems quite possible, if not likely. Note the bubbling spew from the area around the engine. When the latest high-tech military equipment unexpectedly appears at a site where a high-state official is about to die accidentally, one may be assured that one or more intelligence agency is involved. It must have been viewed as a major operational error that trained military types were so inept as to give away their position to chance onlookers or the videographer's lenses from which they were hiding. Perhaps someone from the audience has a better explanation concerning a green slip-and-slide that just happened to blow over from where a leper's grandchildren were playing on the craggy Kalaupapa beach. Good, we apparently have adults in the room. The Maui County Police were told one of the male passengers already had a neck brace on in the cabin. It appears he also wore a helmet, though he would later deny it. It also appears one of the passengers was given a device to allow her to alternately inflate and deflate her life jacket many times. The former Green Beret was outfitted with what appears to be a personal microphone, as seen in the upper right. Ms. Fuddy, seen in the lower left, had her left hip outfitted with a black box of some sort. The videographer is seen at several places apparently listening to just one of his earbuds. The video's audio stream at no point suggests he did any sound check. Indeed, sufficient video frames disclose that the earbud cord didn't even extend up to the camera. So, was he listening to a local radio station's tunes in mono, or did he have some other kind of waterproofed radio coincidentally strapped to his person? Even though the Hawaii Department of Health Deputy Director Yamamoto was repeatedly visited by a little helper whose name didn't appear on the manifest, Yamamoto didn't seem to mind. Although the helper appeared to have just walked off the set of Goonies, conjecture is that the helper had onboard electronics for audio, video, and various biometrics that would have helped keep track of Fuddy's health status. After a splicing of the video is seen, Yamamoto, who in the upper frame was seen with Ms. Fuddy, is in the lower frame next to a military-trained diver, who has assumed Ms. Fuddy's place. Note the many differences to be seen between the top and bottom images, recorded ostensibly a mere 37 seconds apart. The 4 points of comparison between Ms. Fuddy's shoes and those of the replacement diver at right make plain that the real Ms. Fuddy was replaced by someone wearing entirely different footwear. With all the James Bond equipment verified to be on site within seconds of the ditching, with the FAA destroying crash records against its own policies, with the NTSB generating a completely false investigative report, and with so many agencies coordinating corrupt results, citizens may be confident this was a hoax that used the military to attempt an assured continuation of the deep state's favorite administration controlling the executive branch.